All right, folks, welcome in here to the Thursday edition of the Bama Elite Podcast Touchdown. Alabama Magazine, bringing this to you right here on YouTube. Hit the like button. Stop what you're doing right now. Hit that like button. Give us that thumbs up. Best podcast you're going to find right here talking your Crimson Tide football, the Bama Elite. Also, if you can't check us out right here, you got to check out our guys at the Big Game College Football Podcast Network and audio stream for the best college football coverage in the South. We definitely want you here. Listen to the Bama Elite. If you can't catch us, then definitely the Big Game College Football Podcast Network and audio stream. Also, check out our guys at Prize Picks, sponsor right there, doing an incredible job with fantasy sports. They got you covered college football, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, esports, boxing, UFC, whatever you want. They got you right there with that more or less projections. It's you versus the projections, which means you put in that $50 or $100 deposit. You can get that $50 or $100 matched back. In terms of Alabama football, you use that code BAMA100. That is BAMA100 there to get that thing started there with Prize Picks. Appreciate all you guys coming in here with my man Justin Smith, the lead scouting and recruiting analyst for TDA. I'm yours truly, Stephen M. Smith, rocking with you right here. We got Alabama-LSU on Saturday. College football playoff rankings came out on Tuesday. Bama debuted at number 6 here in those rankings. But Justin, how you feeling here on a Thursday?
I'm feeling good, Steven. Always good. Like I said, like I always say, it's always good to be on here with you to talk about Alabama's upcoming game, LSU. Crimson Tide travel to Baton Rouge for a night game. Nothing like a night game in Tiger Stadium in November, especially in this Alabama LSU matchup. So yeah, I'm excited to see that game. I'm excited for Saturday. Just a large college football slate that is exciting.
Absolutely. So as we look at it now, Justin, Bama and LSU, I mean, normally when both of these teams are good, this is where the SEC West is won. This is where an SEC championship is won. This is where a national championship is won. And on top of that, if you remember, Justin, that 2015 game between Alabama and LSU, that was where Derrick Henry took the Heisman away from Leonard Fournette. And what a matchup that was right there between two very sensational running backs. So this matchup means a lot here. Both of these teams in the CFP, top 25 rankings. And since 2012, if I'm not, well, 2000, yeah, since 2012, Alabama 5-0. Nick Saban 5-0 at Tiger Stadium, including the 2020 matchup where Mac Jones, Devontae Smith went crazy in that game. Najee Harris also, and Ed Orgeron became unglued there on the sidelines. But the best news here, Justin, to open up is Bryce Young is good to go. I mean, he talked about it on Monday. He feels good. He feels healthy. Shoulder looks fine. Saban said he's been able to practice more this week as opposed to weeks prior. So having the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, back and everything working fine, working smooth there with his arm and with his shoulder. Some strong news there for Alabama going into this matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be very beneficial because I think this game is going to be a good one. Just based on what I've seen from LSU continuing to get better, what I've seen from their offense and their defense over the last couple of weeks, them just showing continued growth. So I think this is going to be a good game, and it's going to be great for Alabama that they have Bryce Young back close to being as healthy as he could be after resting last week during that particular bye week. And like you said, at the beginning of the week, he said he feels healthier, he feels better. Use that bye week to really rest his shoulder. So I think it is going to be important for him in this particular game because, like Brian Kelly said, he feels he's the best player in college football. Bryce Young is a difference maker, and if you have a difference maker on your team and you can put him on the field, it's always going to change things, and it's always going to be working your favor.
Well, as we set this thing up here, Justin, we know that this game, Alabama, no room for error. With the loss to Tennessee, can't afford another loss here, and the West will be won with Saturday's matchup. So we're going to flip this right now with Alabama's defense, and we've been talking about this whole time. On the road, it has not been at its best, but here's a moment where you go into probably the most hostile of hostile environments. You get a chance to go up against LSU, Brian Kelly, their fan base at night, Mike the Tiger, and grab the heart and grab the soul right out of LSU's chest. And Coach Saban talked about it with Eli Ricks. He doesn't have to overly do too much and acting like he's got to be the man or a superhero, so to speak, going back to face his old team. Do your job, handle your responsibility, trust that the other guys on the back end will do their part as well. But defensively here, against an LSU team on the road, it's going to be loud. It's going to be insanely crazy. What do you want to see, Justin, from this defense to show that we can do it on the road?
Yeah, I think as far as from a defensive perspective, I think you have to make Jaden Daniels uncomfortable as much as possible. He has grown as just as much as the whole team has grown over the last couple of weeks. You just watched their game against Ole Miss where he was really great to look. I think that this is best he has looked this whole season on. And you look at that matchup, Ole Miss was getting no pressure. And there was a lot of times he was just standing in the pocket, surveying things, and was able to just be relaxed. And then if he's able to run, find a running lane, he's going to take advantage of that for sure. I think he does have a little Bryce Young in him in terms of being able to run and keep his eyes downfield and make some plays on the run, just stay in the pocket and not cross the line of scrimmage and keep a play alive. Of course, this is what makes Bryce Young so special and so dynamic. I wouldn't say he does it at Bryce Young's level, but he's a guy who at least can do it, and he has shown that he has the potential to do that. So I think that is what the Crimson Tide's coaching staff should do, get some pressure on Daniels, in my opinion. And also just looking at down the field, I think LSU will put the ball in the air, not as much as some other teams, but I think they will test Alabama's secondary deep, which is what I would do because I feel that is where they have been vulnerable in the past this season. Just take a look at past games. Evan Stewart was able to make plays down the field. Like Xavier Worthy made plays down the field. Jalen Hyatt made plays down the field. So if I'm LSU, I'm trying to attack Alabama over the top as much as possible with Jaden Daniels, who seems, like I said, to be gaining confidence. So I think in terms of Alabama's defense, I think I have to make Daniels uncomfortable.
I think the big thing also for here in this game, Justin's going to be the interior defensive front for Alabama. We've talked about it. The guys have not been able to create that just consistent in your face pressure. And it doesn't necessarily have to be sacks, but batting the ball down, getting into the throwing window of Jaden Daniels and making him uncomfortable with those pass breakups, with those batted balls. If you can get sacks, absolutely do that, but collapsing that pocket, not having him step up and helping out Will Anderson, helping out Dallas Turner, helping out Chris Braswell. Now, DJ Dale and Jaheim Otis have both been able to practice this week quite a bit here. We will see how they look on Saturday coming into pregame warmups on will they play or not, especially with guys like T.M. Smith and Jamil Burrows, Byron Young, Damon Payne, Jamarian Latham. Those guys have got to get the pressure to Jaden Daniels as well as contain so that he doesn't break the containment of the pocket. But, I mean, this is a game, Justin, where defensively the front seven has got to show itself, in this matchup. The front seven, defensive linemen, linebackers, they've got to show themselves this week because this is a game where it's not just the SEC West. It's not just, a shot to play for the SEC title of the national championship, but every NFL scout, Justin, is going to be at this game. I mean, you go back to 2011, the 9-6 game, and folks say how boring that was. That was a defensive masterpiece. Everybody that played on both teams in 2011 got drafted to the NFL. If you look at the 2019 matchup between Alabama and LSU, everybody from both of those two teams. When you look at Tua Tagovailoa, Najee Harris, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. On the flip side, Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. The list goes on. They got drafted to the NFL. So every NFL scout is going to be at this game. So for Alabama's defense, the integrity in the run lanes and stuff in the run, because LSU's got some bags with Armani Goodwin and Josh Williams, but also along with that, the interior of the defensive line bringing pain, getting pressure to Jaden Daniels, collapsing the pocket inside, and not allowing him to have those running lanes. I think that defensive front seven, they've got to come with it this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's part of the pass rush for sure, Steven. If they can come up and make some plays, I think get him like similar to what they didn't do against Hendon Hooker. Get him off his spot for sure. Because there is times where he is comfortable in the pocket, just sitting back there. A lot of times, if LSU's offensive line gives him that opportunity, he will definitely take it. Like I said, if he sees a running lane, he's not a guy who's going to hesitate at taking it. So I think containing him will be very important as well. So, but I go back to what you said, defensive line. If they can come up and make some plays in terms of establishing a pass rush, that will be great. And of course, defending the run. But like you said, they are a pretty balanced squad, in my opinion. And Jaden Daniels is a guy I think you have to force into some mistakes. He only has one interception on the season. So that just shows that he's not a guy who's going to make a lot of mistakes. So I think you have to put some type of pressure on him and make him beat you.
Absolutely, folks. You got to check out that big game college football podcast network and audio stream for the best college football coverage in the South. Check us out here on the Bama Elite every Thursday and Sunday right here on YouTube. Touchdown, Alabama Magazine. Stop what you're doing. Hit that like button. Give us that thumbs up. Like the podcast. Best podcast you're going to find right here talking Bama football. Also, check out our guys, our sponsors at Prize Picks, who do a phenomenal job with fantasy sports. If Alabama football is your thing, they got the projections for you. It's you against the projections. So if you hit those projection numbers right there, you put that $50 or that $100 deposit in, Prize Picks will match you with that back using that code BAMA100. That is BAMA100. Get that thing going there with Prize Picks. But Justin here, flipping over here to offense against the LSU. People have said all week about LSU's wide receivers. They talked about Kayshon Boutte. They talked about Jeray Jenkins, among other guys at the Tigers have. But, here's a game where a Ja'Cory Brooks could really have a big performance. A Kobe Prentice, a Isaiah Bond, somebody within this group can have a big time showing here against this LSU defensive secondary, though it has talent in there. If you had to pick a receiver, I know it's been tough all year because the performances from this group have been kind of up and down all year. But if you had to pick one that you could say, this guy, it's their moment, it's their time to kind of take those reins in this LSU matchup and be the big play receiver, who would the one guy be in your opinion?
I think I have to go with Ja'Cory Brooks. I think that is the answer. Most people would say just based on I like his potential. I think he has decent route running ability. I think he has a potential to continue growing in that area and possibly be one Alabama more elite route runners, wide catch radius, a guy who will go up and catch the football, that's shown up in big moments, even in the past, going back to that Auburn Iron Bowl and even going back to this season. He hasn't scored touchdowns almost a lot of times in big moments, but there have been a lot of third down conversions where Bryce Young has basically looked for him and got the ball to him in a lot of critical and clutch situations during this football season. So Ja'Cory Brooks would be my guy if I had to pick a wide receiver who I feel could come out and make an impact. But like you said, this group definitely hasn't performed to the level that Alabama wide receiver room has performed in the past. But again, those are a lot of first-round draft picks who have been in Tuscaloosa over the last couple of years. So Ja'Cory Brooks would be my guy. But in terms of Alabama going up against this LSU defense, I do know that LSU does have a great edge rusher in B.J. Ojulari who can get after the quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see how he will match up with Alabama's tackles, Tyler Steen in particular. So I think he's a guy to note on LSU's defense in terms of getting pressure on Bryce Young, which Bryce Young has done a great job of evading pressure, making some magic almost seem to happen when he's getting pressure. I feel Alabama's offensive line has continued to grow as well from a passing blocking perspective. Run blocking as well. Seems they are a little bit better when Seth McLaughlin is in the game. But Alabama's offensive line, I think that is going to be important for Bryce Young to make some plays, whether those plays come within Alabama's offensive scheme or whether they come during when plays break down and when Bryce Young has to make something out of nothing, which is where he seems to be his best.
Justin, sticking right there at the offensive line, both tackles will be tested, Tyler Steen and J.C. Latham, because you mentioned BJ Ojulari on one end. The other end is Ali Gay. And both of these two can affect the quarterback, will affect the quarterback, and will bring a lot of pressure. So J.C. Latham, who's been graded out by Pro Football Focus as one of the best tackles in college football, the young man is a sophomore. You scouted him out, Justin, in the 2021 class, the most college-ready offensive lineman. So he's played well this season. Tyler Steen, the transfer from Vanderbilt at left tackle, has played well also, but both of those two will be tested. I want to see Seth McLaughlin start this game. As much as, yes, Darian Dalcourt has had some strong moments, don't get me wrong, but LSU Alabama is known for the physicality. This has always been a physical rivalry, tough, in your face, drag them out, that type of thing. And McLaughlin, with the scrappiness that he plays with, this really fits him. This really fits his skill set. It plays right into his wheelhouse as that type of player with that type of toughness and that type of nastiness out there on the field. So I would love to see Seth McLaughlin get that starting nod that's not only open up that run game, but create opportunities in pass protection as well for Bryce Young and this group of receivers. But Justin, here, as we now kind of flip to on Tuesday, college football playoff rankings came out, the debut for this year, and Alabama came in at number 6. And a lot of fans are like, why? Why did this happen? Why is Bama 6? Why? They're doing this wrong again. Bama is 6. No way. But if you remember the 2014 CFP rankings, the inaugural year where it first happened, Bama debuted at 6 with Blake Sims as the starting quarterback in 2014. And Alabama rode that to the SEC championship, won it that year, got to the college football playoff, took on Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. And if Lane Kiffin would have kept running the football with Derrick Henry, we would probably be talking a very different situation, but I digress from that. And even 2015, with Jacob Coker, Alabama debuted at number 5. Crimson Tide wrote that to the national championship and won despite the loss there to Ole Miss. So, Justin, as you look at these rankings here as they came out once again on Tuesday, were you okay with where Alabama sat? Even though we all know all the dreams, the goals, the aspirations right there in front of a Tide, all they got to do, win Saturday, win out the remainder of the regular season, win the SEC championship, they get there, and everything else is pretty much set in stone there. Were you shocked by Bama at number 6?
No, I definitely wasn't shocked. I know some people were pushing for TCU to possibly be in front of Alabama because they are undefeated, but I definitely see why the committee put the Crimson Tide there. They lost against Tennessee, and what they have always said in the past when it comes to the college football playoff, it is how you lose does matter. So I think that really mattered in Alabama's case. You lost against Tennessee on the road, a game-winning field goal, a lot of penalties. So the college football playoff committee looked at that loss and they valued Tennessee a lot. They put Tennessee number 1, and I think that went into why Alabama was number 6. So it didn't surprise me why they was number 6, especially with Tennessee being number 1. It was pretty obvious. And plus, Alabama has a win under his belt against Texas, and who is listed in the college football playoff ranking, the initial one. They have an opportunity to pick up some more wins and really have a great strength of schedule. And that loss, if Tennessee goes on and beats Georgia this weekend and keep on winning, that they have the best loss in college football. I think they have the best loss in college football right now. Easily, it's the number 1 team in the college football playoff ranking. So I think the Tide is in a really good spot. And like everybody knows, in terms of this first ranking, it matters in some ways, but it doesn't matter for Alabama with the position that they are in. Everything is still on the table. The SEC gives you an opportunity to control your own destiny. So I think the Tide are in a really, really solid position, which is what we all expected after they lost against Tennessee. We all knew the SEC West was still on the table. We all knew their dreams to go to Atlanta was still on the table. So we knew everything was still in front of Alabama in terms of their college football playoff hope. So I wasn't really surprised by anything. I think the Tennessee thing didn't really catch me off guard either, because I felt if they were number one and if Alabama number 6, they probably were going to be number one, since they beat they were the only team with another win over a team within that top 6.
Well, Justin, right now we're going to go to a couple of these score predictions here in the chat. Not our listeners, who got these score predictions lined up for us. So if you have a score prediction for the Alabama-LSU game, go ahead and drop that there in the chat line. Also, your offensive and defensive player of the game, if you have that, drop that in there as well. So we start this thing off with Jonathan McMillan writing in 55-17. Bama. Jonathan got Bama rolling. McMillan 55-17 in favor of the Crimson Tide. We got BVNK Roll, BVNK Roll Joe with 42-28 in favor of Bama. So he's got 42-28. The godfather of the SEC, my man Waylon, who one of our faithful listeners, or in my own words, Waylon writes in 42-12 in favor of Alabama, 42-12. So you guys continue to get those predictions in and be your offensive and defensive player of the game of your choosing. We got Mario Gordon, who just wrote in 35-17, Bama. Mario Gordon. We got Dominic Everett writing in 38-21, Bama. That's from Dominic Everett. And we've got here Jason Stacy with 42-14 in favor of the Crimson Tide. You guys continue to get those score predictions in, your offensive and defensive player of the game. And also give us that thumbs up there on the show. Hit that like button. Continue to support us here, the Bama Elite. CEO Watts writes in 42-6 in favor of Alabama. Dexter Wright is asking us for our score predictions. Justin, we'll get to those a little bit later on here. But we got Jeremy Sanders, 31-14, Alabama. Appreciate Jeremy there. James Hunt, 38-20, Bama. Appreciate James Hunt there for that one. But we're going to slide in here, Justin, too. A little bit of recruiting news. Alabama getting a big-time quarterback, another one from the West Coast, a 5-star at that. So just looks like Alabama for the decade to come, not going to be short there on quarterback. So Justin, break down this guy who has given that yes to the Crimson Tide from the in terms of recruiting.
Yeah, Julian Sand, 2024 5-star quarterback.
Now he wouldn't be related to the Super Saiyans of Dragon Ball Z, right?
No, I don't think he's related to those guys for sure. But Julian Sand is a special quarterback prospect. A lot of people are high on his potential for sure. He's a guy right now who has the ability to really extend some plays. I think that is something that a lot of coaches like about him in terms of his pocket presence at this age. Of course, he's a 2024 guy. He's on a dream. He still has time to grow, and he's putting a lot of work for sure, working under Danny Hernandez, who worked closely with Bryce Young during his time in high school. Actually was Bryce Young's quarterback coach before Bryce Young transferred to Mater Dei. So he is a guy who, like I said, Alabama seems to be really high on at the moment. Of course, with these guys committing early, you always have to keep your eyes on them for sure, because there's a long time to go in their recruitment. For example, 2024 guys, they still have a lot in front of them. So a lot can happen, but he seems to be locked in with the Crimson Tide, and the Tide's 2024 class. It seems to be in a really, really solid position. So the best thing Alabama fans can really hope for now, that he stays on board, stays locked in. It is a long way to go. They should be excited about the possibility of him staying. It's really interesting, and it shows you the amount of interest that he has in the Crimson Tide, and the fact that they were able to sell him on their program, which he has a lot of respect for. I remember talking to him months ago, and he said that he just has a lot of respect for their player development, specifically talking about their quarterback development, talking about how they have 3 quarterbacks in the NFL starting in the NFL. We can take a look at Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones. So he knows what Alabama stands for, and the production that they have had at that quarterback position. Seems to really like Bill O'Brien. Seems to really like Nick Saban. So I think this is a huge get, but you have to keep him on board. And I think that's going to be important for the Crimson Tide moving forward in this 2024 recruiting class, even when it comes to the forefront. Of course, looking at Alabama's 2023 class, they already have two quarterbacks in Dylan Lonergan and Eli Hosting. So I know in the past, Nick Saban always wants to add at least one quarterback in each recruiting class, and he's not playing around with that. He's making that a priority, it seems.
So, Justin, we actually got a question here from Robert Hill in the chat line. He writes in, what chances that Justice Haynes decommits from the Tide and commits to Georgia? It's not looking good for us. Justice Haynes, an elite running back from Buford High School in Georgia, a guy that when you watch him play, kind of reminds you of Najee Harris with how he hurdles and how he can move and he can spin and he runs with power. He's got speed. There's a lot of different NFL backs in Haynes' game. Justin, do you see him holding on to that commitment to the Tide, or the Tide holding on to one Justice Haynes? This question coming from Robert Hill.
You had to admit it was going to. You had to admit, if you are an Alabama fan, you kind of knew it was going to be tough to hold on to him. He's a Georgia legacy. He's a Georgia legacy. Grew up in Georgia, attends a Georgia high school in Bruford, a Georgia powerhouse. And Bruford and Georgia has not stopped recruiting him. And you take a look at the way Georgia uses their running backs. It's like running back by committee over there. It seems as if they're running 3 or 4 guys every game, and it seems to been that way the last couple of years under Kirby Smart. So if you are a running back, a downhill guy like Justice Haynes, and with them being a Georgia legacy, you knew he was going to at least continue to give them a good look, take some visits, continue to go to some of their games. I think you kind of expected that, even if you are an Alabama fan, because that is just how the recruiting game works. And with, like I said, with him being a legacy, being in Georgia, he was going to go for a game. And this also is a big game. If you are a recruit, if you got an opportunity to get free tickets to the Georgia-Tennessee game, who is not going to want to take advantage of that opportunity as well? But so I definitely feel that he is going to continue to give them a good look. But from what he says, what he has constantly put out, he's locked in. He's ready to join the Crimson Tide. He feels his future is bright with Alabama. Felt really comfortable in his decision. When I talked to him in the past, his dad seemed really confident in his decision. Although he's a Georgia legacy, he felt confident in saying, I know this is Justice's journey. I know his journey may be different from mine. His role may be different from mine. They both seem to have confidence in Nick Saban and Alabama's coaching staff. So I think the Tide are in a really, really good position with them. But you know, Georgia is going to try their best if it's a legacy and keep pushing for him as much as possible. And they have a lot to offer at the running back position in terms of the way they use them. But in my opinion, I think he is solid just based on what he has consistently put out there and the vibe that I've gotten from him.
Folks, we got you right here, the Bama Elite Podcast Touchdown, Alabama Magazine, right here on YouTube. Hit that like button. Give us that thumbs up. We want your support right here. Best podcast you're going to find on a Thursday and a Sunday, talking Tide football. Be sure to check out the Big Game College Football Podcast Network and audio stream for the best college football coverage in the South. That Big Game College Football Podcast Network. And also our guys at Prize Picks, sponsor right there, Fantasy Sports. Check them out. Use that code BAMA100 if you're playing Bama Fantasy Football, Fantasy Sports there where the college football is concerned. But Bama 100, it's you against the projections. Check them out right there. They do a phenomenal job. Well, we got an interesting thought here coming from BVN Cairo Joe, which he writes in, if we don't win, and by we, he's referring to Alabama, if we don't win the national championship, I feel like Bryce won't leave. And then he goes, have y'all thought about that side of the NIL, more players staying all 4 years because they don't lack funds? I think you're muted there, Justin. Couldn't quite hear you there.
Oh yeah. As far as Well, answering that question in terms of Alabama if they don't win a championship and whether how that impacts Bryce Young leaving, I think Bryce Young is definitely leaving. He's a top 5 pick easily. He's in the conversation to be the number 1 quarterback in the 2023 NFL draft, and I think the thing that makes Bryce so special is that he can make plays like I said off script, and I think it'd be crazy or insane for him to come back. I don't think he's coming back, in my opinion, just based on what his draft stock would be. And I think the other question would be like the NIL with more players. Have you guys thought about that side of NIL, more players staying all 4 years because they don't lack funds? I guess that is a way to look at it, but it all depends on what situation you are in. It's like the NIL thing is on the surface, it sounds really good, but we all know the best players are getting the best NIL deals. The Bryce Youngs of the world, he seems to be the king of NIL, and he's going to have a top-rated draft pick. And the guys who are not getting the best NIL deals are probably going to be the guys who are late-round draft picks. I think with that in mind, I think it's going to balance out to a way that I don't think a lot of people will stay because they are getting a lot of money from NIL deals.
Absolutely. And we got this question in here, Justin, from my guys at the Bama Standard, Justin Riley, comedy legend Steve Brown, and the gang over there. And they're writing in, we didn't talk about this enough the other night. How big of a role does Cameron Latu need to play in this game? His production has dropped off this season. He needs to step up here for Bryce. And Latu, Bama's got to get him the football. I mean, I know he had the drop in the end zone against Tennessee, but Tennessee was also one of his best games of the season. So it's like you got to get him the football. Now, I understand he admitted himself. Cameron Latu admitted, I got to be a better blocker. He admitted that. And that's good for him to admit that. But at the same time, you got to get him the football because he is an athletic weapon. He is a big body. He is a red zone target. You got to give him the ball. And I know people have been crying for more creativity from Bill O'Brien. You're not going to get that at this point. I mean, the best you can do at this point is hope that he leans a little bit more on the run game and that the receivers are able to get shorter routes. You're not going to get just a whole bunch of creativity from Bill O'Brien. But what he can do, and what Joe Cox, the tight ends coach, can do, is create something for Cameron Latu because he needs to be on the field. He's got to be on the field. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. I think Cameron Latu definitely is an underrated athlete. I think the best thing about his game is his ability to make plays after the catch. I think that is extremely underrated. Going back to that Tennessee game, of course, I was there. I think the thing that was most impressive to me was the way that he was catching the football. Several of those catches was all hands. There were no body catches. So
he was just snatching balls that game.
Yeah. You like to see a guy who can do that. So I think that was very impressive out of Cameron Latu. Definitely is more of a receiving tight end. It is kind of funny. At one time, it seemed as if Alabama was just recruiting those like traditional tight ends. Going back to just the long list of decent tight ends Alabama has had, guys who are able to put their hands in the ground for sure and be decent receiving threats. And I think Alabama has tried to make a much more bigger push to land guys with more of a receiving background. But at the end of the day, I think you still have to be a balanced tight end. I think you can't get away with it. Even in the NFL, you got to be a tight end who can do both. I think that's one part of football that hasn't changed. Although I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You see at the high school football level, a lot of tight ends are just playing wide receiver in high school. But in my mind, in college and NFL, the tight end position hasn't changed as much in terms of them being physical guys, basically basketball players playing football a lot of times, and you have to be able to do both. They just have been able to be more of a receiving threat at those top levels in the college and in NFL. So looking at Cameron Latu, he knows he has to get better at blocking because you're going to have to block in the NFL if he wants to make it there. So, but going back to your original question and the Bama Standard and Justin Riley's question about Cameron Latu, yeah, I think he can be beneficial as a weapon if Alabama can get the football in his hands, particularly in space some type of way. Let him be a safety valve a lot and just give him that opportunity to make some plays after the catch. So I like what I've seen out of Cameron Latu in terms of potential in the past. But we'll see if Bill O'Brien can draw something up that gets him more involved.
Absolutely. Dexter Wright has written in about Georgia. He says Kirby Smart has our entire footprint with their tight ends, and they look good. He's referring to Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington over there in Athens for the Bulldogs. But I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing Alabama using more of Cameron Latu and Amari Niblack. I mean, Niblack to me, I mean, yes, he's going to put on a bit more weight, but we saw him catch a touchdown pass earlier in the season and have not seen number 84 much at all since then. So, got to get him utilized more on the field also. But just as we begin to wrap this thing up on a Thursday, I know you are not one for predictions. You've always said I'd say the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes down to score predictions and offensive and defensive players of the game. But if you got one prepared, Justin, let's go ahead and let this one rip here.
Yeah, I think I got a score prediction. I think this is going to be a tough game, a tough battle. I don't think it'll be a low scoring affair, in my opinion. I'm thinking 35-24. That's the score prediction that I am going with right now. Just based on the way Alabama's offense has played over the last couple of weeks. Just seeing how Bryce Young has basically had to make plays off script. And I think that is going to be something that could be hindered this week a lot. I think that is something to keep our eyes on because I do feel like LSU can put pressure on the quarterback, and with teams that are able to put pressure on the quarterback and have great edge rushers who are decent in space, it's going to be a little bit harder for Bryce Young to try to make those plays. Some plays he's not going to be able to go around and produce that type of magic if LSU can get some pressure on them. So it's going to be very crucial that Bill O'Brien draws up some plays and some easier plays for Bryce Young to make plays in it, whether that's down the field or on medium pass plays. So I'll keep my eyes on that. But I'm thinking around 35-24 for players of the game. I want to say Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm not sure if he'll get the opportunity. I feel like I said earlier, I feel like Bill O'Brien seems to be going away more and more slowly, but surely going away from the running game. But I think Bryce Young can have a big game here, just be who he is. Like I said, project to be one of the top draft picks in the upcoming NFL draft. On the defensive side of football, they're gonna go with Eli Ricks again. I really love Eli Ricks, his game and just his skill set. I really like what I've seen from him last game. I was really looking forward to seeing him play this whole season. I'm happy for him. They finally got an opportunity to start against Mississippi State. I think he is going to come up big in this matchup for the Crimson Tide in some big moments. With LSU showing that they are trying to pass the football more and more as the season gets on. And also we haven't talked about it a lot, but LSU is the number 10 team in the CFP ranking. So this is a top 10 matchup.
Absolutely. So Justin's got 35-24 in favor of Alabama. The offensive player of the game on his end would be Bryce Young. Defensive player of the game, he's got Eli Ricks. So on my end, I'm going to go 38-20 in favor of Alabama. I got 38-20. My offensive player of the game, I'm going to go Ja'Cory Brooks. I'm going to go Ja'Cory Brooks. I mean, he's been the most consistent of the receivers. He's got the most receiving yards right now at 376. I mean, when Bryce Young needs a play, somehow, some way, he finds a way to Brooks out there, number 7. And defensively, I'm going to go Byron Young here. I'm going to go Byron Young just due to the defensive line. That interior's got to come with it. And with Justin Eboigbe out for the rest of the year, due to a procedure he had done on his neck. Remember, Eboigbe, Byron Young, DJ Dale, they all came in the same class as 4 stars, in that 2019 recruiting cycle. And of the 3, Byron Young has always been the most productive. He's always been the most consistent. He hasn't necessarily had the numbers this year, but prior to this point, he's always been the most consistent. So I would go with Ja'Cory Brooks offensively. defensively, give me Byron Young. He's got to come after Jayden Daniels in this game.
Yeah, I think like you said, if Alabama can get some interior pass rush, that would definitely help them on, like you said, on the defensive side of football. I think that's going to be very important. And if Byron Young can do that, I always like some flashes that I've seen out of Young in the past in terms of him making some decent plays in space, making some plays in the backfield. Of course, none of those guys have been extremely consistent, but he has flash, so I can see a game where he could possibly make some more plays. I think he had if you had to look back, I know Pat was really high on him going into the season because a lot last year he flashed a lot in games. He hasn't flashed as much this season, but this could, like you said, this could be a game where he can do that.
Well, folks, this has been the Bama Elite Podcast Touchdown, Alabama Magazine, giving you the rundown, the breakdown of Bama-LSU, some college football playoff things. Also, our own Justin Smith, breaking down the recruiting side of things. Young man, a 5-star quarterback for the 2024 class, giving that yes to the Crimson Tide. And of course, Justin mentioning one, Justice Haynes. Keep your eye on him. 5-star running back 2023, still hanging on strong to that Crimson Tide commitment, though he is a Georgia legacy. But, folks, that's going to do it right here for the Bama Elite. Enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll be back to recap it here with you on Sunday. Hey, enjoy your weekend, folks.